Well, from Southern Ontario, Canada, it's June 20th. I've seen a lot of comments over the last weeks and months from around the world. How could Canadians be so daft as to re-elect the Liberal government? Some are even more insightful and say, how could you have elected another World Economic Forum government? So with the clarity of hindsight, we can clearly see Trudeau was placed a puppet leader by the World Economic Forum. After a decade in Canada's evident deterioration in every sense, even a goodly percentage of the think they're Liberal supporters, low-info voters, wanted Trudeau gone. Polling of Trudeau's disapproval was pushing an astonishing 80%. And poof, with no attempt at even an excuse or a reason, he resigned and just basically disappeared. We haven't seen him since. Gone without a trace. The left behind-the-scene dictatorship declared an election would be held to replace Trudeau as the Liberal Party leader. Well, let's look at the contestants and how it played out. For its revealing, if viewed, I should say, in clarity. Mark Carney, we'll come to him last. Chrystia Freeland and former Liberal House Leader Karina Gould. Chrystia Freeland and Karina Gould. You'd be hard-pressed to find two more disliked contenders, even amongst the Liberal supporters. Another contestant was a businessman from Quebec. Frank? Was it? Bayless? Who you say? What? Yeah, exactly. It's possible more people know my sister's cat's name than who Frank Bayless. What? Say what? Who? Then there was Chandra Era, a backbench Liberal MP, about the same who factor as Bayless and the sister's cat. Although the Liberal Elections Committee tossed him as Carney wanted the riding that he, Chandra, had held for, I believe, a decade. Ruby Dalla. Now here it gets interesting and insightful. Ruby could be, and it was argued, had a lot going for her. A woman, first-generation Canadian of Indian descent, if I remember correctly. A former two-term Liberal MP, although quite some time back there was a bit of dirt with Chandra, but nothing for a Canadian politician, nothing of any concern. Anyways. A successful self-made businesswoman, attractive of appearance, one might argue, and that seems to be important to the Canadian voters. Ruby had a lot going for her, even a gem of a name. But no, said the party's electoral committee, they tossed her. Now, a couple of farcical dog and pony show debates were held amongst the now four Liberal contenders, that being Bayless, Carney, Freeland, and Gould. And the debates were a literal dog and pony show. Note all four members, including Bayless. I researched him. He's a WEF member as well. Excuse me. But anyways, so the party election was held, and out of 450,000 Liberal civilian party members who could vote, only 136 were counted. They never explained why at all that was so. And Carney won the leadership with 86% of the vote. The WEF propaganda department, the mainstream media, held forth all of this, insert expletive here, as democracy at its finest. He won an election with 86% of the vote. So, Mark the Klaus Carney, in a free, fair, open, and unadulterated electoral process that was presented as the epitome of democracy at its finest, was now the leader of the WEF Liberal Party. Let's look at the next 36 days of the snap election. The mainstream media propaganda department went full pedal to the metal. A Harvard economist, As the head of two national banks, he alone had saved both Canada and the UK from certain and total financial ruination. No mention that in both instances he printed gobs of money, devaluating the currency, and applied the failed to trickle-down economic scheme. Liberal-funded polls showed Carney's popularity rising at rates that were almost unbelievable, considering the majority of eligible voters as a week earlier had no idea who this globalist even was. As the mainstream media portrayed Carney to be just shy of a demigod, they simultaneously went full tilt attack on the Conservatives' opposition leader of the Conservative Party and the party of a whole. A shameless and shameful attack. Oh, where'd my next notes go? A shameless and shameful attack upon the Conservatives and the Conservative Party, and there was considerable mis- and disinformation. Where are we here? Forgive me. Here we go. And that mis- and disinformation was, of course, at the taxpayers' expense, no less, as we give the CBC, well, it's about $2 billion a year, and they're not the only ones. But anyways, I digress. Overnight, this diminutive little man with an oversized, misshapenly shaped egg perched atop a pencil neck was 6'2" with eyes of blue. Big Daddy, the next James Bond, gushed to think they're liberal voters. Mark the Klaus Carney's campaign, meanwhile, was pretty much solely based on Orange Man Bad, and the Conservatives will hand Canada's sovereignty over to Uncle Sam within scant moments of being elected. Simultaneously, Jagmeet Singh, leader of the NDP, intentionally, blatantly tanked his party, making sure that the left voter base would not be split. Now, don't forget, Jagmeet graduated from the School of Klaus, class of 2016, Young Global Leaders Program, and is an active status WEF member who'd been propping up the 75% WEF member liberals for years. The low info and low IQ liberal supporters bought the pitch that this was strategic voting, an absolute necessity to save the country from the external and internal threat of fascism. That 90% of these folk wouldn't receive a passing grade on what the political ideology of fascism actually is mattered not. The West's behavioral sciences, operating from the BIT Nudge Unit in the Privy Council in Ottawa, was being sold by the mainstream media propaganda department successfully, and that the IDU fascists, conservatives, were the real boogeyman, and still is. Well, I was being parroted in the social media. If the election had not occurred in all possible haste in the shortest period of time allowable, I wonder if the outcome wouldn't have been a bit different. It might have been a Carney liberal World Economic Forum loss, for the dirt on Carney is plentiful. But, well, I'd have to make a series of videos for the dirt on Carney, and perhaps I will. It's too much for one single video. So, if you're somewhere else in the world and wondering, are Canadians that stupid? Well, yeah, a lot of us are. 50% of the Canadian population, and this is a worldwide statistic, just in summation, don't make it to 3 digits. And then we have the problem of low info, and then, as I prattled on about throughout the video, the mis- and disinformation by the propaganda department. So yeah, that's how we ended up with, well, we had a Trudeau, a World Economic Forum puppet, and now we have Mark Carney, a World Economic Forum puppet master.